Hi, my name is Luke Wallace, and today I want to talk about Bitcoin and the law. So, Bitcoin is an emerging technology, and what it is it's a digital currency that exists on the internet only. Bitcoin is generated by a computer that solves a series of math problems. Once that math problem is solved, one Bitcoin is created, and then it can be traded for goods and services. What's really interesting about it is that there's thousands of computers that are generating these Bitcoins, and there's no bank and hardly any governmental regulation. So this is about as close to free trade as one's gonna get. Now, the societal impacts, I really think Bitcoin is going to be beneficial globally. You see, there's a lot of countries that the value of their national currency could be worthless. As such, that prevents them from trading and expanding their economy. Bitcoin, is not affected by the fact that their national currency is garbage. And so when people in impoverished countries trade in Bitcoin, well, then they can have more value and they can trade more, and this will help increase the GDP of impoverished countries and allow countries to globalize more, thus connecting us as a whole. And I think this is a pretty utopian form of viewing it. You don't have any currency, or you don't have any government involvement, little bank involvement, and this can, help globalize the world. Now, the pacing problem is Bitcoin's indirectly affected by the pacing problem, because when computers get more advanced as technology progresses, that makes it easier for one to hide their identity, because technology gets more advanced and hackers get more advanced. And as we've seen, legislatures, they can't respond as quickly as the pacing problem. And so when it comes to identifying certain criminals who are trying to hide their ID online and transfer illegal money and commit crimes, Bitcoin makes it that much harder to find those criminals, because Bitcoin's already hard to identify the user of it, if you don't have an IP address. And as technology increases and we find easier ways to hide one's identity, the legislator is going to come up with new ways to figure this out, and Bitcoin just makes that a bit more difficult. Now, risk and uncertainty is what I want to talk to you about next. What's risky about Bitcoin is that it's so volatile. You see, the value of Bitcoin can increase or decrease from hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, very little period of time. Makes it hard to invest in it. Uncertainty, we don't know if anyone's going to adopt if the mainstream is going to adopt Bitcoin in the future, and so that makes it uncertain with regard to if it's going to have any value in the future, and if it's going to be adopted by the mainstream and become a tool and a financial instrument that we can use regularly. Now, as of right now, there's a lot of debate as to how Bitcoin should be regulated, how we should make a regulatory framework in the United States. Now, the Financial Crimes Network, that's part of the Department of Treasury, that treats Bitcoin as a currency, and that place combats crimes, that are done financially. It treats Bitcoin as a currency, and it's interesting to note that FinCEN has stated that digital currencies do not have any legal tender in the United States. So they don't actually regulate the Bitcoin, but they do regulate the transactions. Now, the IRS considers Bitcoin a property and not currency, and has issued guidance on how it should be regulated. The Securities and Exchange Commission views digital currency as a security. In March of this year, the SEC said it's looking to apply securities law to everything involving Bitcoin. And so while there's no primary regulatory body that governs in the United States, I think the SEC should regulate Bitcoin exclusively, because like all other securities, Bitcoin's a financial instrument that holds some type of monetary value. Now let's go back and talk about those crimes. See, Bitcoin makes it easy to commit crimes online because it's much easier to hide the source of money. So for the Silk Road, for example, it's a lot easier to pay criminals with Bitcoin online. How do we combat that in the United States? Well, that's through a combination of multiple laws. You see, the Laundering Control Act of 1986 makes money laundering a federal crime. So if you use Bitcoin to, hide the source of your transactions, to use Bitcoin to launder money, that's going to be illegal. And then we have the Bank Secrecy Act. Now, that's a law that requires financial institutions to help the government in detecting and preventing money laundering and report those suspicious activities that may signify money laundering. Now, does this really work for Bitcoin? And that's interesting because there's a case called United States versus FIAA. The court said that these statutes can regulate Bitcoin and make those crimes illegal. And so here are those. We've got the statutes and the and the case. And then in conclusion, Bitcoin can affect society globally. It's very volatile and uncertain. And the law may need to evolve to effectively regulate Bitcoin and crime. And that's my presentation. Thank you.